9 today, the 26th of February 2026. Good morning. Welcome to the Urban Parliament on Urban Radio 94.5 FM. My name is Yagazi Obiwande Ozalo. Good morning, parliamentarians. Welcome to the fourth session of the Urban Parliament for the week. Today on the Urban Parliament, we'll be focusing on the Nigerian police. Yes, a lot is happening with the Nigerian police at this point in time. Of course, we know that there's a new sheriff in town with regards to the Nigeria police force. So yes, Tunji Disu, who appointed by the president as acting inspector general of police, has assumed office yesterday. Tunji Disu is 59, took over the reins as Nigeria's new police chief at a ceremony that was held in Abuja at the Louis Edet House shortly after the president, decorated him as the acting IGP. So the event is coming a day after the president appointed him as the nation's top policeman. Speaking at the handover, the head of the Lagos Rapid Response Squad promised to provide an accountable, modern and professional policing. According to him, and I quote, "My tenure will be built on three clear commitments: professionalism, modernism, and accountability." Professionalism, modernism, and accountability. Says he wants one thing from officers across the country: the best and nothing less. Quoting him again, he says, "Integrity, compassion, courage, these are not optional qualities, they are the job. But I make this promise in return: I will fight for your welfare, your dignity, and the conditions you need to serve effectively. You will not be asked to perform miracles with nothing." So yes, like I said, there's a new sheriff in town. The president has asked him to go ahead and, be in charge and lead the police responsibly. He has said he will, under his watch, that the police would respect human rights and all whatnot. Another thing developing with policing in Nigeria is that the president has asked the National Assembly, particularly senators, to amend the constitution for state police. So yesterday night, the president charged the National Assembly to begin the process of amending the constitution to incorporate state police as part of efforts to tackle the national security challenges. He made that appeal at the Iftar, the interfaith breaking of fast with members of the Senate at the presidential villa in Abuja. He described Nigeria as extremely challenged by terrorism, banditry, and insurgency, and said that the constitutional amendment has become imperative to enable the country to secure its forests from bandits and free children from fear. Policing in Nigeria is under the exclusive list controlled by the government at the center, with states depending on the Nigeria Police Force for internal security operations. So establishing state police would definitely require a constitutional amendment which must pass through both chambers of the National Assembly with two-thirds majority and be ratified by at least 24 of the 36 states' houses of assembly. And President Tinubu has asked the National Assembly to go ahead with this state police thing. So, yeah, a lot happening with policing in Nigeria. We want to talk about it. We want to understand whether the new sheriff in town will revolutionize the police, will have the police begin to respect human rights a lot more, begin to police with, dignity, less impunity in their operations, which a lot of citizens have continued to complain about. All right. Today, I will be speaking with the National Coordinator of the Human Rights Volunteer Corps, HRVC, Mr. Larry Oguigo. Mr. Larry, good morning to you. Thank you for joining me on the Urban Parliament.
Good morning. It's a pleasure and my privilege to be here to have this very important conversation. Good morning to everyone that's listening to us out there.
All right, good morning, sir. Thank you for joining me. The police, again, is very much talked about given what has changed. Leadership of the police has changed. The president is looking at having state police become a reality in Nigeria and whatnot. What do you think about the Nigerian police force at this crossroads, so to speak? We now have a new Inspector General of Police. The expectations you have of the police that you'd like to let us in on?
I can tell you clearly that the sound bites are very good and very encouraging. I like the way he sounds about professionalism, about compassion and all of that. Sounds very interesting. Um, he also said something that's very good. He made promises to the officers too. I won't expect you to go and catch a lion with your bare hands. I'm going to provide the tools. I'm going to see that you have what it takes to get the job done. Now, these are very encouraging statements. But then we are used to wonderful statements coming from leaders in Nigeria, and then subsequently nothing gets done. I hope it won't be the same narrative. The truth is that I don't envy the man. I don't envy anybody who inherits the present policing institution that we have in Nigeria, especially the Nigerian police. We have several policing institutions, but the Nigerian police is supposed to be the lead policing institution in Nigeria. And I don't envy anybody who inherits the level of rot, corruption, meanness. I mean, people are so afraid of the Nigerian police. I'm not going to mince words about it, but there are Nigerians who are more afraid of the police than they have criminals. And there's something that's very important about the statement I just made. Somebody actually told me during the human rights training that he has a phobia for the police, that in fact he would rather just not want to interact with the police, that he's more afraid of the police than the criminals. And I said, why? The explanation was very interesting. He said, see, I may live an entire lifetime, I don't meet an armed robber, I don't meet a kidnapper. With all of the prevalence of crime, you can live in Nigeria for 20 years and you don't get to see an armed robber face to face, a kidnapper face to face. But you see the police every day with all the menacing powers they have. They have pervasive powers. You know, it's scary that people who are vested with so much power can use the power for the wrong things, to arrest people, extort money from them, kill people for no reason, do all sorts, evict tenants from their homes for no reason. You begin to ask yourself, if you have this kind of police, do you really need criminals? I mean, it's a very tough situation for this. We talk about police reform very often, but it's a systemic problem. It's not going to be easy to reform the police because it's not just about the head being rotten. It's rotten all the way. I mean, it's a bad situation. It's an extremely bad situation. So, yes, extremely bad. I say so with the insight of someone who has related with the police closely for 19 years. That's a long time. Closely for 19 years. I understand all of the intricacies. I've listened to complaints from the side of the people, from the side of the police officers. I mean, it's a conundrum. It's a very, very bad situation. However, we shouldn't just lament the bad situation and walk away. We should tell ourselves the truth. The truth is that the situation is irredeemable. But you need strong political will to transform the Nigerian police. I didn't say political will, I said strong political will. So charging this to go and do a good job is not good enough. Giving him the resources may not even be good enough. That is money. What I think we need most in Nigeria now is the political will. That is a president that will charge an Inspector General of Police to go out and do a good job and give him the capacity to arrest the son of a minister, the son of an APC chieftain, the son of a billionaire, the daughter of his friend, anybody who commits a crime, arrest the person and deal with the matter professionally. That is actually the major major challenge we have in Nigeria. We don't have a level playing ground. We have different rules for different folks. So if you're a poor man, you are likely to be arrested for doing nothing and you pay just to get your freedom. If you're a rich man, you're likely to walk free for doing something. Like I've always said, when the politicians steal money because they are greedy, they get little or no punishment. When the poor man steals yam because he's hungry, he gets maximum sentence frequently, gets remanded in prison, gets all sorts of. I mean, while I'm not encouraging poor people to steal, I wonder, so why can't we punish those who created the environment that compels poor people to steal? So we have this problem that makes you really wonder, when are we going to get politicians who will want our police to work? Because honestly, I'll say this and then maybe we'll look at other dimensions. I sincerely believe that the police is not working because politicians don't want the police to work. If you look at it across the board, you notice that the politicians don't want an efficient police institution because it serves their interest to have an inefficient police institution. They want a police they can use personally to settle political scores, to harass people, to rig elections, to do all sorts, to do land grabbing, to enforce illegal orders. In Anambra State, a governor told the police to go and enforce the locking of a market. Who does that? It's not the business of the police to enforce orders that don't have any legal basis. But because they want a police force that is inefficient, that is ill-funded, so they dash the commissioner money every week, they can tell the commissioner to go and practically kill somebody, and the commissioner will find a way to couch it, and say, oh, yes, this person committed a crime and all of that. So we have to how do they use it again? They use that word. They say we have to neutralize. So we have a huge problem. The politicians don't want the police to work. And I am wondering if our president is an exception until we have political leaders who will actually say, my citizens deserve better. My children deserve better. I've always propounded this theory, and it's not a theory, it's a fact. If you are the local government chairman, you are the father or mother of the entire local government. They are your children, irrespective of their status, their age, and all of that. If you're a governor, everybody in the state actually are your children, including people who live in the state or who are not from the state. You have a responsibility to take care of them. If you're a president, the country actually becomes the family. And the last time I checked, when these guys have family members who are in distress, like I've always said, they make phone calls. I mean, if the commissioner receives a phone call and the governor says, my nephew is detained, the commissioner will be very angry with the policeman who arrested the nephew of the governor. So didn't you ask questions? You just arrest people anyhow. They will be less interested in what he did. They'll be more interested in the fact. I didn't want to say the son of the governor. That doesn't happen in Nigeria because we won't be able to arrest him because of the level of security around him. Even if he commits a crime, you won't arrest him. I said nephew, niece, you know. The person who was doing his job will be apologetic for doing his job. But when the rest of us are arrested for doing nothing, absolutely nothing, and we are detained, the governors look the other way, the president doesn't care, the legislators who are supposed to have oversight are totally uninterested. Totally uninterested. And that explains the kind of situation this has inherited. And I don't know how it's going to fix it.
I don't know.
But
He says he has declared zero tolerance for corruption and impunity, and is going to make sure that that ends with the police force. So you're saying that it's a Herculean task for DC to do that, but not just that. He has to have a president, a strong-willed president who would give him all the necessary support to go ahead and reform the police and change entirely how what the modus operandi of the police is in Nigeria.
It's a very difficult job. Let me explain why it's difficult. I'm an optimist, but then you have to also be realistic. A simple matter to deal with, especially when you are looking at the kind of corruption we have in the Nigerian police. We have people who have built a system of expenditure that their salaries cannot support. So imagine that a police officer earns 250,000 naira a month. Then his monthly expenditure is 800,000 naira. And then you say, oh, your name is Disu, and you want to fight corruption, and you have zero tolerance for corrupt practices. problem. They live above their means consistently. So, how do they fund the gap? Corruption. That's why people pay money for bail. That's why people are asked to pay 100,000 naira for doing nothing. A young man was picked up. His offense was that, I mean, a few days ago, like 2 days ago, in Enugu, he was standing with his friend by the road. His offense was that he was standing by the road and waiting for a bus. They picked him up and told him that he was standing at a dark spot. But that's where people stand to commit crime. How do you explain that? And they were supposed to pay 25K per person. And they arrested up to 30 persons in that manner. So how do you stop a person whose wife is driving a fancy car, mistresses are well taken care of, children attend private schools, he runs a bill of $1 million a month, and suddenly, because your name is Disu and you're the new sheriff in town, you want him to now tell the wife, Madam, you have to start driving a Golf, with all due respect to the car. And then, yeah, my kids will have to go to public schools. After all, Pick and Bar has given us smart schools. There will be a riot in your house. You won't take cornflakes again. You will take abacha because you can't afford cornflakes. You see, when you say you're fighting corruption, there are some things you must do. You don't just say we're fighting corruption. You have zero tolerance for impunity. In fact, it's a very, very Herculean task. But it doesn't mean it cannot be done. It means that even the person who is promoting it should start from himself. He should also look at his own antecedents as an officer. The people he's going to tell to change know him. Okay. They know where he's coming from. They know if he had shared stuff with them before. They know if they are giving him returns before. So it's a very, very possible task, but it's also a difficult task. I know a police commissioner that worked in fact, precisely the Nwachukwu Ebochukwu, he did a whole lot to sanitize police in Enugu. That's about 20 years ago. He had a personal principle. The zero corruption wasn't verbal. It was real. Don't give me returns. I won't take. Don't take from any. It was open. It wasn't hidden. This is a police officer as commissioner that would enter an unmarked vehicle and drive around Enugu to arrest policemen collecting money from Okada rider. Himself. You don't make them like that anymore. You don't. A policeman that will send ordinary Nigerians to go to police stations and tell him how many detainees that were in different police stations. So he would find out why. You have 30 detainees in your cell. What are they doing there? They're exactly alone. And he would go there personally. And if you didn't put the names of all of those detainees on the board, you had a big problem. But they don't make commissioners like that anymore. They don't make DPOs like that anymore. You have pockets of sanity, but if you are as strict and straight as that man was, you may not even get to be a DPO because you can't provide returns. The system will not allow you to rise. So it's a very bad situation. If I start giving you instances, I hope I have time to tell you some of the stories we've had to deal with recently. Yeah, sure. You'll be shocked that it's a scary situation, as in very scary. I mean, they launched, Amnesty just launched the story on Tiger Base.
Yeah, I read it. I read that this morning.
So
extrajudicial
so with places like that Tiger Base, where do you really need to worry about kidnappings? I mean, when people who are supposed to protect you are the people persecuting you, when people who are supposed to protect you from abductions are the people abducting you and doing precisely the same thing kidnappers do. So how do you so why are we complaining about kidnapping? When you'll be walking on the street, somebody will tell you that you're standing on a black spot, take you to a station, and then compel you to pay money to go home. The only difference is that they have state support and state protection. That's the only difference from the kidnapper on the street. Because when you compel me to pay you money to go home, that is ransom. You can call it whatever you like, but it is illegal. So you are taking me by force against my will and against the provisions of the law. You keep me in a place. Sometimes my family doesn't know. You have successfully money from me and ask me to go home. That is kidnapping. So we have a very serious problem with policing in this country. If we don't fix policing, we don't even have the moral right to complain about other criminalities. Because the problem we have is that when we have policemen and women who behave the way they do presently, you begin to ask yourself, do they really have the moral right to police other persons and to talk about people committing crime and all that? Do you know that asking for bribe and receiving bribe is a crime? But it's not nothing for you. And so we have a very fundamental problem. And for me, we need to tell ourselves the truth. If we don't have the political way to clean up the police, nothing will happen, nothing will change. You'll be the kind of stories I get to hear, not just stories I get to hear, things you see, things when you tell people some of this, they say it's not true. They will start by saying it's not true. That is as a reflex action. It's not possible. But these things happen. So many horrendous stories. You begin to ask yourself, how do these men sleep? They go to churches and mosques. How do they go there? Do they listen to what they say in those places? And so we have a fundamental problem. And I think while we pray for this, I think yes, we should pray for him. I think we should pray more for the president to give him the free hand to get the job done. Because the truth is that they will tell you clearly, there are different laws for different people. While you're doing your policing, policing, if you don't touch the wrong person, you may lose that position. And because they want the position, because of the benefits that come with the position, they don't want to touch the wrong people. The wrong person may be a crook with connections. You don't want to touch him.
All right, you touched on something, a story that Amnesty raised around Tiger Base in Imo State. It's not the first time we're hearing about, Tiger Base being notorious, so to speak, in terms of how they handle detainees in that particular police base. We've heard of several other police bases that have had these very infamous stories around them in the past, Okoso SARS and some other places that people have said, okay, some extrajudicial killings happen in these places, torture of victims, bail is not free, and all whatnot. But you also said that there are recent issues that you would like to point out. Can we begin to point them out? Because the new Inspector General of Police has a lot on his plate to do if he really means to sanitize the police force. So if you can tell us more of these personal stories that you've handled or issues that you've handled regarding the police. Let's hear about it.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. It's actually difficult to know which one to talk about, but I will try to just talk about a few randomly. Not necessarily because they are as bad as the Tiger Base situations, but you see, all of them are bad. Starting from the story I narrated about two young persons who were standing by the road, and they were picked up, and their offense was that they were standing at a dark spot. I don't understand that people operate from that space. That's a space by the roadside to go and commit crime. And they were supposed to pay 25,000 naira per person to get bail. One of the victims, the brother is a volunteer with human rights volunteer, so he called the office and we handed the matter over to an intervention officer who actually interceded. The young man was arrested a few days ago. I think he was arrested today, Thursday. He was arrested on Tuesday, I think. They slept in the cell for nothing. They didn't have money to pay. People who paid left. And then they were released yesterday without paying anything because the intervention officer made the DPO called the DPO rather, insisted that he should be released, and he was released. But that sounds very simple. We had cases that will make you wonder. For instance, one of the cases, I hope one day we'll have the opportunity to talk about it extensively. It's a case where the Independence Laos Police Station supervised the eviction of a family.
Eviction?
Yes. That's when I say supervise the eviction. They supervised the eviction of a family from their home in a very controversial situation. Okay, this young man in question reported to the police that some strange persons came to their place and was trying to harass them and evict them without due process. They actually assaulted them. They committed crimes. He reported the crimes to the police. A few days down the road, the same people he reported the crime against. Meanwhile, the police officer collected money, about 50,000 naira, to incident the crime. And then he now told him that you have to bring more money so we'll process it. I think we need to talk about that. That's the fact that policing is now for sale. So for you to report it to Southeast. You pay money. It's not hidden. You pay to report, and then you pay to mobilize them. That is like contractors, security contractors that they are, to mobilize them to go and, for instance, try to arrest the person. Now, if you mobilize them with 30,000 or 50,000, and they make the effort and they don't arrest the person successfully, that money has elapsed. You have to pay again. But I don't want to dwell on that. This young man actually was arrested by the same police station that had a pending case. He was arrested by the person she reported the case against and taken away from the house because he was living with his parents. So they took him away because he's a young man, very, very vocal and all of that. They wanted to evict them from the house. So they found a reason to just arrest him and put him in the cell at Independence Police Station. And then while he was there, the police went and moved their property by force out of the house.
The police themselves?
Yes.
Without
No, that is, they went, the police supervised the process, the talks, and loaders carried the property. The parents were protesting, not young people. Mother, father, old people were protesting. In fact, they refused to leave the house. They said they won't go anywhere. So they didn't know how to drag them. So they took the property, loaded the property in a vehicle, and accompanied by the person who was manipulating all of these things, they took the vehicle to Independence Police Station. And this is where the story becomes interesting. They brought out the young man they detained the previous day, who they expected to put up a fight, and told him that they were going to release him on the condition that was going to accompany that vehicle to a house they rented for them. Without their knowledge. The person who wanted to evict them by force even rented a house. These are verified facts. I'm going to bring that young man here. And we will also inform the new Independence Police Station to come and explain to us if that is. The DPO supervised the process. I hope somebody will call him so he will listen to what I'm saying. So they actually told the young man, okay, we're going to release you on the condition that you have to enter that vehicle so that you go and know where we are moving you to. So you are moving a family by force without any eviction notice, nothing, just by sheer force. But guess the funny part. The person who locked him up illegally procured the person who signed bail for him, the person who signed bail for him to enable him enter, because he didn't have anybody. He said he didn't want to come out of the cell, so to say. But then there was nobody to help to fight for him. Didn't know about HRBC then and all of that. So he came out. The same person who was punishing his family procured the person who signed bail for him, and then they put him in the truck and sent him to a house they rented. Now, the father and mother, his parents refused to leave that house. So after they dropped him there, he went back to the same house, the boys' quarter of a duplex. And a few days later, the protagonist in all of this, the person who arranged all of this, hired talks and came and dragged all of them out by force. And until today, the police actually refused to investigate the petition the boy brought to them. But guess what? They charged the boy to court for conduct likely to cause breach of peace. So I report somebody for committing a crime against me. You ignore the crime, you aid the person to evict me by force. And then you charge me to court for conduct. You have that kind of police officer. You don't need an enemy, you don't need a criminal. It's about the highest bidder here. The poor boy doesn't. He had to borrow money to pay the 50,000, the first 50,000, because he didn't have a choice. He wanted to protect his family. But that's the kind of policing that we see on a regular basis. We have a case, a very pathetic case that makes you wonder. I'll just find a way to make it very brief. A driver was contracted to take some goodies to a young woman, Nkwobi and wine, all of that, to a young woman somewhere in FM Enugu. by her male friend. So the driver was contracted to go and deliver those things. The driver went there, after calling the recipient on the phone, she said, "Oh, if you get to so and so place, call me so I'll come and pick it up." The driver got there. The lady wasn't picking her call. So after waiting for so long, he left. And the lady called and said, "No, come back." He went back. There was another glitch. So he left, and the lady said, "Oh, sorry, come back." The guy said, "I'm not coming back unless you pay." I've exhausted the money that was paid to deliver to you. I've been there twice. So I'm not coming back unless you pay. Of course, the lady threw a tantrum. "I will deal with you, blah, blah, blah." The guy said, "See, if you are not paying extra money, I'm not coming back." So he went and stored that stuff in a freezer. I said, "If you pay, I'll bring it back." Long story short, nobody paid. The next thing, found himself at SWAT, the infamous SWAT. I call it infamous because I think they hold the record in Enugu. Before it was anti-court. After the SY boss of anti-court left them alone, maybe the place a little sane. Now it's SWAT that we are dealing with. So the SWAT folks detained the driver and asked him to pay a whopping 200 or 250,000 naira for Bobby and Wine and just a few miserable items. That he had to pay that separately as damages to the owner. And then he also had to pay a few hundreds to the police. And they detained him and refused to listen to anybody. The Association of Drivers came to HRBC. Of course, we released him, but there's something peculiar and curious about that case. The lady in question, for reasons that I'm yet to place my fingers on, but I suspect I know, refused. In fact, everybody panicked. They refused to come out to have a conversation on that matter. Because I told the intervention officers, tell the commander of SWAT, bring the lady. Let us even know why she couldn't take her stuff. Bring the man. The lady fled. The suspicion is that there's something about that relationship, the person who sent what to her. And the police now started patching up the matter. Of course, they quickly released the young man because the lady didn't want to be exposed. But the point I'm making is, how do you tell somebody who made 2 attempts to deliver something to pay 250,000 for it, just things that didn't cost up to 20,000? And when the police start mediating in simple contractual disputes, and they didn't allow the young man to say a word, they detained him for 3 days or thereabout. That is just pay the money and go home. The man who reported the case, who sent the goodies to the woman, was supposedly a friend of the police. So he went there and was throwing his weight around, giving the policeman instructions. So, so people have not dealt with him enough, right in the presence of the so-called suspect. So imagine how the man would have felt. Of course, he was released when we intervened, and everybody ran for cover. And we're insisting also that they should pay him damages for detaining him in that circumstance. If not, that woman should come out, all the parties should come out. Let us even know the basis, that is why that man sent those delicacies to her. I don't want to say more than this, but at the appropriate time we'll say it if she doesn't do the needful. Because you cannot just pick up a young man for doing nothing and you can put him in jail for nothing. Of course, we have had cases where a very famous case, Ikechukwu, is a long story, where the IPO asked for 3 million bail. I went to the commissioner. I was doing something else. I was having a conversation with the commissioner of police, and I had a phone call, and I told him, I have to take this call. There's been intervention. So they told me, they're asking for 3 million for bail. I told the CP, I said, "Oga, you're telling us that you're telling me that you have 0 tolerance. So see what is happening. Your men are asking for 3 million for bail from a young man who did nothing, who did absolutely nothing. A case we had followed from the previous commission." And the CP was so angry. While we were dealing with that case of 3 million for bail, 2 million again asked for bail from a woman who did nothing. She drove a pregnant woman to hospital. The woman delivered a baby, so-called crypto pregnancy. And her offense was that she drove the woman to hospital. They collected money and released the woman who was involved in the crypto pregnancy, and collected money and released the person who was running the crypto pregnancy racket. And they held the person who drove her without knowing whether it was cryptocurrency or crypto pregnancy. This one saw a friend with a big tummy who said, "I need help to get to hospital." That was our offense. So asking for 2 million. The small daughter brought the case to our office. The intervention officer asked them, "What of the real suspects? The person running the crypto pregnancy racket there, he said, do you know how much they paid? That's the police talk. Telling a civilian, do you know how much they paid? You are running your mouth, talking, and you may go and happen. Now for 2 million in nonsense. Of course, they release that. So 2 million, 3 million. The CP called the commander of SWAT. That case was escalated. And then eventually, when they interviewed the IPO, he said he was joking. That was his official response. I didn't know. What a joke. 3 million.
He was only bluffing.
Yeah, he was just joking. So he joked with 3 million. So maybe the man would joke up 2 million. And he joke and collect it.
So the reforms for the police goes beyond what the IGP would do. We have, states that have commissioners of police in those states who are in charge, and they also have to step up their game if we're to see any positive reforms with the Nigeria police force. That's essentially what you're saying, and the citizens themselves have also learned to misuse the powers of the police by, like you said, the police is up for the highest bidder, so to speak. Whoever brings the money, the police does their bidding. You pay the police to go and evict somebody without a court order, from a building that they legitimately paid rent for.
Let me give you a simple list. Somebody is owing a business partner and is not quick to pay. You pay the police to go and recover the money. They'll just tell you, they are bring the case. I know how to write the petition. They will have to write the petition, so they can get the money. You want to evict a tenant who is stubborn, you tell the police, they will know how to do it. You have a problem, you like a babe, somebody else who doesn't have money is distracting the girl. You understand my use of English? That's it. Because maybe the girl likes the guy more, so you have the money. And you tell the police, they will know what to do. The guy will run for his life, tell the girl, I'm not interested again. Because by the time they detain the person and do all sorts to him, in fact, you hate the girl, so I'm not interested. I'm telling you, real cases we had to handle. That is real cases. So what's the genesis of this whole matter? That this person is interested in this. You are a tenant. I'm telling you what I've seen. A tenant, and you have connection with the police, and your landlord is giving you trouble. You see, a girl, a single girl, nearly put her landlord in ATM. Nearly by the whiskers. What saved the man was that they brought him to HRBC. And they wanted to do it just 3 days to Christmas, so the man would spend all the time till New Year. Lecturer, landlord, a single girl who had a police friend, nearly put that guy in it. So, tenant, you have connections. The landlord is a nice man. He doesn't understand how Nigeria works. You just wake up on a good day, contract your police, and they put him in it. I don't want to talk about ATM. That should be an entire program. Putting people in ATM now is as good as having the money to pay to the officer, and then they will get the right prosecutor and the right magistrate. Just the way I'm saying it, and they'll package the person and put the person inside correctional center. The person will think it's a joke. I want to see you. No, there's no problem. Just for that once interview. They'll be very nice until you get there. The next thing you see, you're in court. The next thing. In fact, one of the guys they did that into went there with his car, parked his car as a gentleman that he was. Master's degree holder, entrepreneur, responsible man, wife, family, nice kids. So he was so confident that I'm not a criminal. I don't know why that. He went there, parked his car, walked into the police station. The next night, my phone rang and said, somebody said I should call. I don't know what's happening. I've been here for 3 hours. Blah, blah, blah. I said, okay, you're on your way to prison. And that's my instinct told me. I said, what are they telling you? He said, I don't know. They say the IPO. I don't even know why I have IPO. I don't understand what is happening. I said, I suspect you're on your way to prison. He said, how? What are you talking about? I said, I'm telling you from experience. Can you tell them that you've been here for 3 hours since they said you should wait for the IPO? That you want to go and do school run, just tell them something you want to go. And if they don't let you go, it means you are going to prison. Somebody has plans for you. He did everything to get out of that space. They didn't let him. I said, bros, you're in trouble. You're under arrest, but they didn't tell you. And you are likely to go to court. Because somebody told him, oh, your IPO went to court. He told me to do some things. I said, bros, you are going to... Long story short, the IPO came back. They collected him bodily and took him to court. No plans. In fact, by the time the guy was heading to prison, he was calling somebody. I tell my wife that the car is parked under Ogumango there, that you should get somebody to come drive it to. I tell the children, you will have to. This is a man who left his house in the morning to go and respond to an invitation. And guess what? It was the neighbor that was building a house next to his own. that put blocks on the fence. And he was like, why are you doing this? You don't build, or you need setback. The man, being a lawyer, said, I'll deal with it. A lawyer who serves in the Temple of Justice procured the police. He put him in ATM, took HRPs to bring him out. These are real stories that are verifiable. We had to go to DPP for that case. I was stark raving mad. How can you just carry a man like that and put him in prison for nothing? I have a retinue of cases like that. So in Enugu State, particularly, and in some other states in the southeast, you can pay to put your adversary in ATM unless he also understands the game. Like I tell people, if they come under certain circumstances, don't go. They say, come to the police station on Friday. They tell you on Tuesday to come on Friday. Don't go on Friday. Somebody wants to pay for you to stay there for the weekend. If you are calling me on Tuesday, why won't I come on Tuesday, or Wednesday, or Thursday? Why Friday? Because on Friday, you come there, they will all disappear, and then you stay there till Monday. Monday, they will tell you they sit at home until Tuesday. Unless you also have one. So the situation is very bad. I'm narrating these aspects because it is people like me and you, Yagaze, that will procure the police to do these things. They pay them like contractors to do evil to their fellow men, frequently to their fellow Igbo men. So nisi rabono each and one agree met. Should you say you be landlord or not going to prison? The young woman I was telling you about was bragging to people living in that area that I'm going to put him in prison. Tenant talking about her landlord, single woman. So these are the issues we deal with. But then people will say, so we corrupt them. I say, well, they chose a higher calling. They are police officers. They are supposed to arrest us when we try to corrupt them, not flow with us. But they will actually suggest to you when you come and you're telling them, I have a problem with this now. They say, what? You should know what? You should have told me since now. Come, we'll write a petition. But you have to bring money, so you bring 500,000 for approval. You bring. Somebody paid 800,000 to a policeman who gave such advice. I will know what to do. I will do the approval. I will hold the person like this, hold the person like that. Right. And that has become the canker worm, the challenge we have to deal with, especially in the southeast. And when you talk about policing, just like politics, it's local. Yeah. How many Nigerians have seen Kamsalen House? How many Nigerians have seen police headquarters at Abuja? How many people have been there? Policing, as far as we are concerned, is what happens at one police station. Meanwhile, it's one that abducted people who were waiting for bus. What happens to the person at MTD? They are always showing up in our radar. Right. What happens to the person who goes to SWAT? I'm more concerned about what happens to me in Enugu, Anambra, Ebonyi, Abia, Imo, and all of that than what happens at police force headquarters Abuja. So I don't know how the IGP is going to sanitize the local policing.
Maybe the state police thing that Tinubu wants to push now might be the beginning of that sanitation. At least would know who to hold responsible when it comes to what's happening locally down here in the southeast. Let's quickly go for our news break and we'll be right back.
From the capital of the southeast to the world.
Good morning and welcome to Urban Radio News Updates in 94.5 seconds. Ohanaeze Ndigbo has congratulated Ebonyi State Governor Francis Nwifuru on his 51st birthday, describing him as a transformational and dedicated leader. The Delta State government has encouraged eligible indigenes to apply for the 78th regular course intake of the Nigerian Defense Academy. Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan has called for a thorough investigation into the recent attack on Peter Obi and other members of the African Democratic Congress, describing the incident as troubling and unacceptable. President Bola Tinubu has extended the ban on raw shea nuts exports for another year, effective from February 26, 2026 to February 25, 2027. President Bola Tinubu has urged the National Assembly to initiate constitutional amendments to enable the establishment of state police, emphasizing the need to combat rising insecurity. In sports, Captain Rasheedat Ajibade forward Gift Monday, Christy Ucheibe, and 8 other players have arrived at the Super Falcons camp in Yaoundé, Cameroon, ahead of the too much friendly with the hosts. On Entertainment's Nigerian music executive Olumide Ogunade, popularly known as ID Kabasa, has challenged the notion that wisdom comes with age, calling it a flawed assumption. You're up to the minutes in 94.5 seconds.
Capital of the Southeast to the world.
This is 94.5 Urban Radio Newsbreak.
Keep your brand
Diego.
or business ahead of the competition on Urban Radio 94.5 FM Enugu. For advertisements, announcements, program sponsorship, and other businesses, contact the marketing department on 0806
this one.
367
You know that I
368
wrote police
or
a letter.
0803
I've written them twice, gone to that head police headquarters. I'll do it again this early March. I'll go physically. I'll go and give a letter to that district. I developed a plan to help reduce police impunity and corruption in the southeast. I wrote 3 letters. They responded to 2 of the letters almost immediately. Do you know that all the effort I've made, I've not gotten any response on that issue? And what I asked for is specific, and it won't cost them anything. I said, don't bring any money, I just need your approval. No response.
They won't.
I
They
asked
don't
the
want,
head of
they don't want to stop it.
Yeah, of course. I asked the head of CRE. He said the man was disappointed because he went to the IG personally and said, let's choose this thing. The man said,
Do you want to comment on this state police thing before I open up the floor?
Yes, I can.
Welcome back to the Urban Parliament on Urban Radio 94.5 FM. This morning we're looking at the police as we now have a new acting Inspector General of Police, Tunji Disu. And of course, the president is talking about amending the constitution to accommodate state policing. We have Mr. Larry Ogogo with us in the studio this morning. He's talked about a lot of real life cases regarding police impunity, which Disu has said will stop under his reign. I was talking about the move by the president. He asked the Senate yesterday at the IFTA to make sure that they amend the constitution to accommodate state police, that it's about time that happens. What are your thoughts about that? Do you think that would help with improving policing in Nigeria? And do you think that this 10th Senate can make that happen?
There are 2 questions that you asked now. The first question is relating to policing in Nigeria.
Yes.
The only way state policing can improve policing in Nigeria is that we find a way to ensure that what's happening with the federal police doesn't happen to the state police. It's not about having or operating the state police. It's about ensuring that we have real checks and balances, and we also find a way to limit the powers that the governors will have to control the state police. If not, the state police will just become an instrument in the hands of governors to harass political enemies and all of that. It will be very chaotic if we are not careful. So, for me, the state police is not a silver bullet that will solve all the policing problems. I don't think so. It's a matter of how do we deploy it. If we deploy it well, it will be fantastic. If we don't deploy it well, we'll just compound our problems, honestly. It's not just about state police. We like throwing money at problems. We don't sit down to analyze the impact it will have and how to manage it. Is it a good idea on paper? Yes. Will it work very well if properly implemented? Yes. Will it be properly implemented? Not likely. Does it mean we'll not do it? Doesn't mean that we'll not do it. It means that we have to do more thinking, more planning, and then we try to get it right. Provide safety valves, provide very strong framework, institutional framework for managing the state police. Who will appoint the maybe the commissioner general or whatever they choose to call the boss of the state police? How will the state police interface with the federal police? What will happen to the present divisions manned by the federal police? Because we cannot have state police in every state, and then the federal police will still have 400,000 men and women running around in my village. What are they doing there? Because if you want to amend the constitution properly, it means that you want to copy the United States a little. So you have federal police, you have state police. So what do we do? How do we manage assets? Does it mean that the federal police will relinquish the local stations to the state police? There's a lot of work to be done. And my fear is that the legislators who really don't think as much as they should will just rush through something, and then we get into a deeper problem. So it's a good idea, but we have to actually work on it to ensure that we don't create bigger problems than solutions. Do we think that they can do it?
Disassembly, yeah. You said they will rush through it.
Well, they rush through the anthem one day. They rush through this. But the problem with this is that they can't rush through it in Abuja. They have to go to the states. But incidentally, many of the governors, in fact, most of the governors also want it. And the governors are holding the rubber stamp. So they're going to stamp it. So they can rush it. But it's not like the 2 days rushing they do there. Because they have to, when they finish their rushing, they will push it to the State House of Assembly, so where the governors will ensure their own rushing, because most governors believe now that they need state police because they are frustrated sometimes when federal interests clash with state interests, socially, politically speaking, and they feel that they don't have their own troops. So I think it will work because the political decision makers want to have state police. My only challenge is, please, let the legislative framework be very, very well thought out, so that politicians will not use the state police to harass and intimidate people and create mayhem. And then, of course, there should be a structure that will help us manage corruption in the state police. And of course, I don't want to mention that they should be properly funded and pay their salaries. You can't owe a policeman with a gun for 3 months or 4 months. You are just practically asking him to go and collect the money by force on the streets. So, are there problems with state policing that we need to discuss a whole lot? Is it a good idea? Yes.
All right, sir. Let's open up the phone lines to get the thoughts of parliamentarians on this discussion today. You can join us, call in or send in a message on WhatsApp. For calls 0916 000 5945 or 0916 000 4945. Hello, good morning. Good morning. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Rani.
Good morning.
My name is Vicine Tugo, calling from Oguineke, Umunevu, in Enugu State. Congratulations to the acting IG of police, Tunji Giti. And I commend the words, like you said, the words of Mr. President are very beautiful and powerful. But having said that, I would like him to match actions with his words with actions, not just about that strong word he used. Because if you see, we have seen that kind of strong word when he instructed that the VIPs or VIPs should be withdrawn. Up to now, we haven't seen that happen. You see people moving with a lot of sirens all over the place. So I want him at this time around to match his words with action. Like you said, there are some orders he needed to give to this new IGP of police if sincerely you want law and order in the country. Like, they should do everybody the same way they treat. They shouldn't be hunting somebody separately, and they shouldn't be portrayed. It's always the police that portray the law to be only for the poor, while the rich commit crimes and walk away. So I think one of the most priorities of this President IGP of police that he should work thoroughly on the fundamental human rights of the Nigerians. If the police force could be able to protect the fundamental human rights of Nigeria, we see some of the atrocities will reduce. Regardless of anybody who commits crime, they should be able to stand preferentially to go after the person, regardless of who the person is in society. Because there is nobody should be above. So they are the primary law enforcement agency. So a lot is being expected to him, especially the violation of fundamental human rights. But these officers, they should make it in a way that security police will be our friend. When you have issues, you should be able to approach them, not the other way around. Good morning. Listen.
All right, you say good morning to you. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning.
Welcome from Good
morning.
My problem is we only call police. When did they stop? A primary or a kindergarten went to school, a group of people group themselves and they call themselves PTA members. They set up, called the tailor, they received up to 5,000 or 10,000 that they will sue school uniform for the children. At the end, it was not sued. Then at the end, the child finished up primary school and went secondary school and entered the police. Where did he see bribe first? Was it not in the primary school? You go to secondary school, the same thing applies. So we often bent on the police. We don't talk on other messes that are happening. The first place is institution, our schools, our public schools. Until we get rid of this corruption in our schools, because it is the first place where all the students, these policemen graduate from schools, enter police. So that was how it starts, and it may not end if we start only to call police corrupt. Where did corruption start? It started probably from home to school. What I'm saying is the reality. PTA was existing before. But look at it. PTA now are the employers of the teachers. On what condition? They employ people, collect money from the school. How do they pay the teachers? And what remains is just they share it within the. If you come up to fight for it, you will be killed because you are disenfranchising them from getting the dividends they get from where they are reaping where they did not sow. So, Uncle Larry, we have a very long way to go. This can be curtailed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for my boy. Thank you. Let's quickly go for a commercial break. We'll be right back.
You're listening to 94.5 Urban Radio, where music talk and sports live.
Hello, Nigeria.
Parliament. Join us in the conversation this morning on policing in Nigeria. 0916 0005945 or 0916 0004945. Hello, good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome.
Well, to me, as the new IG takes over, beyond just crime fight, it's about deep reform and restoring confidence in the entire security architecture. So, since security remains a serious challenge, from kidnapping to banditry and what have you, communal conflict, Nigeria will expect intelligence-driven policing and better response time. Secondly, internal reform is crucial. Police welfare, discipline, accountability, training must improve. When there are bad eggs within the system, they don't just damage the image of the police, they also influence local security outfits negatively. Today, many vigilante and community security groups were created to support former police, but in some areas they are being used as tools of intimidation or political pressure. What recently happened in my local government days ago. The new IG must ensure proper supervision, clear operational guidelines, and accountability for collaboration between the police and that also connects to the growing call for policing. Whether Nigeria adopts state police or not, what matters is the structure, checks and balances, and preventing abuse of power at both our federal and local levels. Finally, the IG must focus on professionalism over policy, unity over division, institutional reform over sentiment. What lies ahead is not just leadership, it's building trust, reforming system and strengthening the security at all levels. And to we the people, nobody is wanting to join the police, or we will sit back and complain, allowing the bad eggs, people who are not supposed to be there, most of us people from the southeast region. We just want to sit and complain, but nobody wants to encourage anyone to join the police. You that is complaining somewhere can actually make a change in police architecture. So that is my take this morning. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. 0916 0005945. Hello, good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
I totally agree with Mr. Rice when he said that the politicians are the ones making our police not to work. The man who just came in and he's saying that this election is being conducted today and the oppositions are winning Tinubu's party, will he make sure that the election counts? Because we saw what happened in Lagos, in Abuja, the by-election, where police officers got to voters all to just scatter away with ballot papers. What will he do as the IG of police if something happens under his watch? And I want to say, what is he saying that others have not said? That action is more than what we are saying, because we believe that action speaks louder than voice. If one of us saying anything, the first one said that he was a tiger, when coming in, he was a lion, that he's not scared of anything, he's going to do this and that. And I'm here to see what he did. He retired from he stepped out of the police work without doing anything. Everything remained work. The police, I think it's about punishment. The policing institution, because I follow the Nigeria policing program that was sponsored by the British government, that was 2018-19 or whereabouts. The discovery of that INPP has not been looked into that. And the last thing they said, that was the closing ceremony of that. The discovery was that no crime happens without the assistance of the police around that place. There has to be a police person that has put that crime before it becomes successful. Now we have to look into our police. I think when our police institutions are carefully looked at and their work, crime stops automatically. And one, if they are stopped, those politicians who come into office through the back door will not come in. And I think that is what they cannot do anymore. If you watch the video by circulating online yesterday, by Sowore, visiting the headquarters of the police, that for why we have to arrest a woman who accused him of stealing her. Now use the police to arrest the woman, detain the woman who accused you. That's a civil matter now. That our police have become
how much you pay is how much justice you get from the police. Thank you. Good morning.
All right, thank you. Good morning to you. 0916 0005945. Keep the calls coming. Hello. Good morning. Okay, welcome.
With Uncle Larry, and I want to lend my voice. I want to say that everybody who feels that the Igbos are not joining the police or joining, that person must have a sense for him to think and know whether yes, what he's saying is actually the correct thing. Have he seen the list? Has that person seen the list of DIDs that are lining up and those who are even senior to the man appointed? Is the Igbo man not there? You don't bring these issues because you want to bring them. Just go back and look at the kind of narcotic appointment that has been made by this government and see whether, yes, it is actually something you will stand to defend, that if an Igbo man is not joining police or if they are not joining police, they won't get appointment. That's not the truth. The truth is that this man is saying what he knows that, yes, other police have said, and the way that we are taking, that, yes, when he comes, there is going to be everything about human rights. I want to tell you that it will not take more than 3 months. Everything will go back to its normal place. That's my own prediction that I stand to be corrected. My name is Aga. I come from Aki.
All right, Aga. Hello, good morning. Good morning. Welcome.
Now, policing in this country, for me, I think policing have been hijacked by those of them who find themselves in corridors of power today. Now, in area of recruitment of our police, how far have we been faring as regards to how do we get the right people to do our security job? Are we doing it by quota system, or are we doing it by Imamadu way? Or we are doing it by a professional or somebody who we think can do the job? Having said this, I'm appealing to those of them in the uniform to understand that they are there to guide, to serve this country. They are not there to serve politicians in one way or the other. What we have been seeing in recent times, where a police officer will be carrying bag for the wife of either a governor, a commissioner, or even a senator. So for me, police, as we know, or as we have it in this country, should be independent. Politicians should not be using them to witch hunt their political enemies, so that they can even be seen as a good institution before the international community. Why would our police go out there in other countries and, do a human job, but coming back here, we will continue complaining the way some of them are operating? So I appeal to them to begin to change this narrative. In terms of recruitment, I appeal to our young men and women to begin to think of how to join this force. This force, for me, is a noble institution, is a noble profession.
All right, sir.
We understand that we must get it right.
All right, thank you so much. Hello, good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Hello, can you speak up a little bit?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, it's better. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is Philip Onyama Jr. And I heard that they don't take back push towards that's so that people like them. I don't understand. The force is so corrupt that if we have so many people go into the force, it will not change anything. You cannot choose what's going into the force, because if you go into there, the future will compromise you. The future will contaminate you. And if you don't like it, you leave. I thought about the opposite that goes on in there. This is, as I'm talking to you now, owing me a lot of money. It's owing me a lot of money, about half 100,000. Okay, now this particular, I'm not going to call his name, but he's a higher position. I can't make trouble with him because I know if I make trouble with him, if I try to get out of my way to try to get his attention, he can lock me up because he has that power. Before you know it, you go to court police. Yeah, I like to say this quite clear-headedly. Without police corruption, they'll have one country. We have a top one country all over the world because of police corruption. Okay, so that's what makes it a total country. Someone wants Nigeria to stay third world.
All right, so we'll take a look at the messages on WhatsApp. This one says, Odysseus pedigree gave many of us hope. After listening to the highly respected Larry, I don't know if the police has hope. May God help us. This is Olufemi from Independence Layout. This one says, good morning. Cleaning up the police force is an uphill task, which no current police leadership can do because they all grew up from the ranks. Police force in Nigeria sinks. Okay, there is a group that calls itself SWAT that drives Enugu, arresting young men without any reason. Unless you settle at the spot, you will not go to the station. Tiger Base in Imo State is a draconian station that's unlived many youths in collaboration with government. See how they extort money on the roads with guns without shame. All right, this is Serious COB from MNN. This one says, good morning, Urban Radio and Ogalari. Let me ask, don't police any longer go to training or because they are not posted to the surface? The behavior doesn't portray the image as the human angels. What do we do for having such elements around us? Chris from Achara Layout. This one says, Peter from Transikulu, there is this saying that when things fall apart, the center cannot hold. The Nigerian security system has fallen apart a long time ago, and it's sadly unfortunate that nothing can be done about it anymore. It just keeps getting worse. They just keep reading scripts and making promises that they cannot fulfill. At the end of the day, all is to play to the gallery. All right, this one says, good morning. A third world country is not possible without the corrupt law enforcement. Okay, I think that was the lead Onyama. This one says, isn't it to go? Okay. That message is not loading up. This one says, good morning, Mr. Larry. What happened with Ebubago under Dave Umahi and in Imo under Hopo Zadima, as well as Tiger Base in Uri? And of course, the activities of Ndi Akodo in Anambra are the signposts. Are the signposts to what state police would be if ever established. All the, excuse me, all that Mr. Larry has recounted in the studio will pale into insignificance when the state police is established. This is Joseph from Enugu. Right, we'll take one more message. This one says, good morning. The real reason DIG Frankenbach cannot become IG at this time is not political. It is not ethnic. By police structure and long-standing tradition, when an Inspector General of Police retires, he retires with his entire management team. DIG Frankenbach was a member of the management team of IG Kayode Botokun. That management team included DIG Sadiq Idris Abubakar, Force Criminal Investigation Department, DIG Benjamin Neboli Saukolo, Force Intelligence Department, DIG Williams Adebowale, Information and Communications Technology, DIG Zigu Yakubu Kwazi of the Department of Operations, DIG Adebola Ayinde Hamzat of the Logistics and Supply Department, DIG Idegu Basilo Koma, who is of the Department of Research and Planning, DIG Frank Mba. All these DIGs constituted the management team under the outgoing IG. By convention, they retire with him. The new IG is typically appointed from a lower rank than the outgoing IG's management team. This is institutional practice, not ethnic targeting. Let's avoid turning structural procedures into ethnic bigotry. We can advocate for fairness without misinforming the people. This is Uchenna Melody from Gulf. All right, we'll get back to you, Mr. Larry Okeke. A lot of things